Hey guys, it's Stark here for Film Riot Extras, and we're going to go over the shot today about how to shatter the windshield on here. Now, there's some things I'm not going to go over, which is the tracking, because I'm going to save that for another tutorial, because it's kind of a difficult track to begin with. And the reason being is that if you actually look here, we have to track this windshield, and let me actually just go into Mocha and just show you my track already. That's already baked and ready out of the oven. You can see that because it's a window, it's not a solid object, so you have this changing in the background that's going to do it. And I just don't want to spend time showing you guys this part because it's really not that fun. So you could either do this in After Effects without it frame by frame, or you could do it in Mocha. And I think it's slipping a little bit, but for the purpose of this tutorial, it's good. And another thing just to keep in mind is that probably the I'm not going to like mask them out. They're just going to be how they are, just because I just want to illustrate the point to you. So if you are tracked and you're in this situation now, like we're on the same step here, let me just get you to the same step if you're wondering. And if you have After Effects, you have Mocha AE. So you just you would choose your clip, go to animation, and then Mocha AE. And if it opens up and it's not playing, you might have to export your clip out as just a different format, because that's kind of common, especially with the Canon cameras we use. So anyways, if you're at this step right here where you have your track and you're ready to go, all we're going to do is, I just go to the first frame to be safe. We're going to export the tracking data, and we're actually going to do corner pin because we do want motion blur. So let's just copy that to the clipboard, and then we're going to go and we're going to make a new layer. So for this, we're just going to do layer solid, and we'll call this windshield. And then automatically I'm going to pre-compose, and I'll explain this in a second. We're going to leave everything here. So we'll call this windshield deform. Okay. Now, none of it makes sense. So now I pasted it in the wrong spot. Sorry, you have to go to the first frame so that it is in the correct area. And then just go along here and you'll see. Now you're probably wondering, or not, why I did this the way I did. It's because whatever we do in here now will show up in the other one. So one thing I like to do is I like doing this little, I wouldn't even call it a trick, but method of going to view, new viewer, and then locking the frame, and then unlocking the one. So whichever comp we're in, so right now we're in the windshield comp, and we could do stuff like add text. So I could say windshield, center this guy along. And as we move, you'll see that it's there. And what's kind of cool is it supports motion blur. So this blacked out window looks totally real. And you can see the slipping. And actually, it's fine because we're going to actually start at frame 13. This is where it's going to be. So, or our effect is going to be. So that part doesn't matter really. But out of everything basic, I mean, this is the effect, to be honest. Like, this is the effect is. And so here we go. We have this black square, obviously, or rectangle. And on frame 13 right here, if you hit your asterisk key, it'll just add a holder. This is where we're going to want everything to happen at. So we don't need this at all. Now I have this glass shatter texture, and I'm just gonna hit S on my keyboard and scale it up. And let's go to full because this is not that intense. So let's go here, and then I'm gonna actually change my workspace to my just custom layout. So we're just going to add a repeat tile and then just stick it out to the left and to the right. And you can see the seam a little bit, but for this, it's totally fine. So again, when we jump back in here, I'm gonna shut off motion blur because it's Now the problem I'm already seeing though is even that we're at 100%, it looks like noise. So I want bigger, maybe a little bit smaller than that. I should at least be able to recognize that it's shattered. So something like that. And this is kind of the downfall of this effect though, is you want motion blur, but that's fine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add I have these like bullet holes here. So I'm just gonna drop it here, and then I'm gonna change the blending mode to add. And then I only want one, so let's actually change its pivot point to there, and then we can just mask out the rest. And then I kind of want this right over the guy's face, and maybe I got lucky and that's where it's at. So that's a good spot. Now we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to change this to add. Okay. Now with motion blur off, it's going to look, a bit more realistic. Now the one thing you're going to see is obviously these edges are just kind of terrible. So one thing we could do is go over here and do this, but you're going to see this problem because we use the repeat tile thing. So we're just going to use let's call it a glass mat. It's just a track mat. So it's just going to use this layer as alpha to, so shut this off, to basically cut it out. So alpha mat, and it's still going to be sharp. However, we'll do our little, lock this guy here. We'll do a new viewer. Now what we can do is just mess around here with the feathering. Now, again, if you don't know what track mat is, this layer is saying to use this layer as alpha. So let's just turn up the feathering. And I feel like the bottom part, and this is what I like, is that you could just kind of get rid of parts you don't like. So we're actually going to do subtract. And again, like I said, bring that up there. The bottom, I'm not going to worry about the windshields right now. So let's just do mask and feather. There we go. So it's just kind of blending it a little bit. It needs color corrected and all that. And I think even this edges, bring this down. Okay, I feathered it a bit more. So we have this gunshot right here, and we want everything again to happen on frame 13. So instead of me doing it like this, oh, that is my fault because I pre-comped it. So we are going to have to do everything in this pre-comp. So as long as we're happy, let's just kind of collapse all these layers. I'm just selecting all of them. And then I'm going to go ahead, close this out, unlock that, and then turn on this. Now this is the frame where we want it to happen. And if you look here, that is wrong because it should be a perfect hole. So again, I have to go there and subtract. And now we have a perfect hole, and it's just that. So now here's the whole thing. So we're going to basically put everything to this frame. And the reason why is, caps lock. It's a gunshot, so we want it to hit and then kind of spread, probably over 2 or 3 frames. So what I'm going to do is pre-comp these guys. And I could do this in the other mask, but I feel like I'm at too many masks. So we'll just call this shattered glass, and we're going to move that into its own new comp. Now, where this bullet hole is, we're going to obviously want this thing to happen and then rapidly expand. So what we could do is we could do mask expansion, mask path just to be safe, and then let's try something like 2 frames. And then we're just going to expand it. Now obviously that's super rough. However, we could still turn on motion blur. Save the mask expansion there is 0, but because the motion blur, let's just eat away. So that way it's just like boom. So let's play it back. And funny enough, I feel like just that's too slow, so because it is glass. Now, just to make it more interesting, what we could do is, I'm actually gonna bring this in even more. We're gonna add roughen edges. And all it's gonna do is exactly that. It's gonna be subtle. Let me turn the expansion up so you could kind of see. And I might slow it down, but let's just go to let's unlock here. I'm probably gonna really get rid of that actually, because yeah, let me go back into here. I'm just gonna get rid of the bottom one. Just not a fan. And you can see our shots pretty much done. And the rest is just kind of color matching it. And it's funny how even though it's like noise at this point, you still pick it up. You can see it kind of floats there. But what's cool is just using that, and you could keep doing stuff. You could add whatever you want. And again, it's not supposed to be... This is one of the things about visual effects or even comp stuff, is that it's not supposed to be this thing that's... Like, even if we go there, you could see that there's 1, 2, 3. Hits, boom, boom. So this is basically our tutorial. Let's, out of curiosity, let's just turn it up. Now, in this instance, the last thing I'll say is that we got lucky because even though it's broken glass and you're getting this pattern on it, it's still glass, so it's still going to reflect and reflect and refract things. So that's kind of what pulls it off, even though it's just a white texture on top of it. It's that it's still shiny, it's still reflected. You're still going to get all that stuff in there. So this is the end of the tutorial, and I hope just shining some light on something as this, like two comps, and you have an effect here that's pretty convincing. I mean, obviously the windshields, and you got to take care of that, and I'd probably sweeten up the sides here, but other than that, this is pretty much exactly what I did for the short. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'm curious to see if you guys do anything cool with it or expand it. Maybe do stuff over here on your own shots. So thanks, guys.